I am truly perplexed. And the only thing that I can imagine this is this a trend? Like, I'm genuinely asking, because I am seeing a lot of millennials and Gen Z coming out making videos saying that they've gone no contact with their parents.
Okay, so I came across this video on my FYP, and let's get into it. Some of you may already know that I am actually a child that has gone no contact from their parents for a year now, and that also means that my children have no contact with their grandparents. Now, the main thing that this creator talks about in the video is that she believes that this is a trend. And I completely disagree. I don't think it's a trend at all. I just think that there is more people who have gone no contact from somebody than we realized. And when an app like TikTok came out and we had a outlet of where we could talk about it and express it and, you know, have a community of other people that are going through the same things, it just makes it seem like it's a trend, when in reality, it's just, we never realized how many people cut toxic people from their life. Other than the video standing out to me, there was comments on this video that really stood out to me, and I want to show you guys a few. So here's one of the comments. It talks about their Gen Z daughter went no contact. It's the worst pain. She cried herself to sleep for 2.5 years. And then another parent agrees as well. My question would be, instead of crying yourself to sleep, did you try to reach out to them and see, you know, maybe why they decided to go no contact? Did you attempt to try to fix any type of relationship there, or did you just continue to cry yourself to sleep? Here's another one. Oldest cut contact. Don't know why. Asked for us to sit down and talk. He won't. I don't get to be a part of my 3 grandkids' lives. I'm sorry. It's like a switch gets made, but no warning. I mean, yeah, pretty much. It is like a switch. We finally wake up and realize, oh, we don't have to deal with this shit anymore. And then this comment really got me. Going through this with my oldest doesn't bother me, but I can't see my grandkids. Really? The grandkids will grow up one day and realize being kept from you was abuse and will resent mom. No, not true. Not true. Because if the grandkids saw how their mother was being treated, they are not going to side with grandma. I can promise you that. To add to that response to the last comment that I showed you, I can speak on that because that's literally what I'm going through. I think that my parents' biggest thing is they don't really give a shit that they're no longer in my life. I think it hurts them worse that they don't have any contact with my kids. But what they don't realize is the same shit that they put me through and my siblings through is the same shit that they were doing to my children. And my children saw it. You have to keep in mind, I have a child that's a teenager. She's not oblivious anymore. And there was communication on my end. Communication to the point that I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with them in front of a therapist. And why did I need a therapist? Because let me tell you, they shot that down instantly. Because they were like, we don't need therapy. We're not mentally ill. You're right. We don't need a therapist there because I said you're mentally ill. We need a therapist there because we need somebody to mediate the conversation. Because if we don't, it's going to be nothing but manipulation on me and attacking. And it's going to be screaming and it's going to be yelling and it's going to be to a point that I don't want to deal with anymore. Because I am 35 years old and I do not need that energy, nor do I have to listen to it anymore. But long story short, they shot that down. That wasn't even good enough for them. And that's why we're no contact, because the offer that I put on the table was, let's do this one-time meeting. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do to move forward from this situation and the pain that has been caused like grown adults. But that hasn't happened. It still hasn't happened. And here we are a year later. Now let's move on to the next comments that were actually from people like me who are going through a similar situation. This one I really liked. Boomer and Gen X parents were and are it's my way or no way. And we don't have to deal with that childish behavior from them anymore. I could not have said it better myself. And this one I really liked. The trend is that we're getting therapy unlike the generations before us. Yes, there are that many toxic, abusive parents in the world, I might add to that. And that's 100% it. That last comment really hit home for me because yes, we are different. We are actually going out and seeking therapy because we're not afraid to admit that something's wrong and that we need to work on ourselves. Okay? There's nothing wrong with going to therapy. I don't know what the older generation has on going to therapy. It's like you say that and they're like, oh, what the hell? I want to know your thoughts if this is something that you have to deal with. I did go into a little bit more detail than I like to about my personal situation. But it is what it is. Whatever. Going back to another part of this video that was stated that I want to make one last comment on was that she made a comment. Again, no hate to the creator. She seems like a very lovely person, and honestly, I wish I could have had a parent like that, and I wish I could have a parent like her who's willing to sit down and take time to communicate, but I don't. And just one more thing though, she said something about, you know, these people grew up in a different era, they grew up in a different time. Okay, well, everybody grew up in a different time. When I was a kid, it's not the same as it is now. Times change and you have to change and you have to grow, and you just have to do that or you're going to get left in the dust or with no contact.
Has anyone else noticed that when an adult child chooses to not have a relationship with a parent, it's always, but she's your mom?
I'm going to trauma dump here a little bit, so buckle up. I didn't talk to my father the last 10 years of his life, and when he died, I didn't go to his funeral. And I had many family members reach out to me privately and talk about how disappointing it was, about how much I am the one that was harming the family by not showing up, by me not showing up to a service to listen to a bunch of people talking about how great this person was when we damn well all knew he wasn't. But I was the one that was harming the family. I was the bad person because my not being there was an indictment of everybody else for not doing shit when he was alive. Nobody seemed to have anything to say when he was destroying his life and making sure my childhood was filled with chaos and fear. If there's one thing a family hates more than an abuser, it's a truth teller. And when an adult child chooses to go no contact with that parent, that is a very loud truth.
Watch a video together and then chat about it.
When I feel like I was a good mom and did everything I can to show my kids I loved them and be there for them. And why does this generation of kids just turn their back on their parents? Like, I would never treat my parents the way some of the things have been said to me from my kids. And I don't understand it. And it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. My friends, patients that I see at work, you know, story after story after story after, you know, my daughter doesn't talk to me, my son doesn't talk to me, like, just so much entitlement these days, and it's just so flippin' heartbreaking. Like, it was so much easier when the kids were little. Like, I just didn't think that my life would be where it's at 50. I love my kids, but why is it this hard? Why, where's the respect at for parents and appreciation for all they've done for you your entire life? Like, I don't get it.
Concept of no contact has been going around a lot lately, and so I want to answer this question genuinely as a therapist who sees a lot of clients who have got no contact. I think one of the largest things to recognize as a parent of an adult child is generational differences. So for starters, people who are in their 50s, 60s plus who have adult children grew up in a generation where it was very common for children to be seen, not heard, and respect equated to just acquiescing to whatever your parents kind of wanted. Respect often meant you didn't have boundaries, whereas mental health now is and continues to be a large conversation. Relationships with family members are one of the only relationships in which people are encouraged to make amends with people who have been abusive towards them, who have manipulated them, who consistently cross their boundaries, etc. And as a therapist, what I often hear in these situations is that from the child's perspective, there's been multiple attempts to repair the relationship, to explain the behaviors that are hurtful and harmful, yet the behaviors continue. Or there just isn't the safety or the space to have that discussion in the first place. Another thing is that in terms of gratitude for the parent taking care of them or just, you know, creating them, I think that is often seen to be synonymous with I will have a relationship with you forever. Someone can be grateful for their life, for their parents, for the efforts that have been made, but also decide that a relationship is not for them. And that isn't to take away from the fact that I imagine that it's very hurtful for parents. And at the same time, what also exists is that it's hurtful typically for the child to go no contact as well. But while it's typically hurtful for the child to make that decision, it's also often safer from their perspective to make that decision. I think it's important to come to these conversations with the sense that you are not entitled to a relationship with your child just because you birthed them. It is something that you have to earn and continuously work at. And that goes both ways.
Here's our experience going no contact with narcissistic parents.
So back in March, after we told my parents that we were pregnant with our now daughter, and their response was really negative. My dad said, I never thought I'd be a grandpa at this age, and my mom barely squeaked out a smile, not even. We decided that that was it, and we went no contact with my parents. At that time, we also told them that we would only talk to them through a therapist.
After that, they would text and call and email my husband pretty regularly, multiple times a month. They sent letters to our house. They threatened to show up at our house, even though we live completely across the country from them. And they would send letters on when our daughter was born. They would email on our wedding anniversary. They would just always be trying to contact us.
On top of them trying to reach out to us individually, they also had their friends trying to reach out to us. That was everyone from family members to family friends to even my mom's personal trainer.
And they would say things like they had absolutely no idea what they had done, even though my husband sent over a very detailed email, more than once actually, with multiple things that they had done, as well as phone calls, and they kept claiming they had no idea what was wrong.
All of this was also happening at a time when they were allegedly supposed to be finding a therapist, a process that took them almost 5 months. Our experience is that narcissists follow no rules and will listen to no one except doing what they want to do.
We've also noticed that boundaries just do not matter to them. They'll never admit fault, they'll never admit wrong, and it doesn't really matter what you say or do.
So this is my first major holiday being no contact with one of my parents, specifically my mother. And I know that it's Thanksgiving and everybody is with their family and friends and loved ones. So this might feel like it's not the right time, but hopefully someone who is experiencing what I'm experiencing or has gone through it will see this video and it will give them some kind of hope or encouragement. So I decided to go no contact with my mother earlier this year, sometime between spring and summer. And this was something that I had kind of toyed with the idea of for, well over a year, but never really had the courage, and not even just the courage, but the real desire to do it, because I have always desired to have a healthy relationship with my mom. But I, unfortunately, never have. I have been chasing a mother-daughter relationship with my mother as long as I've been alive. And a lot of people will tell you, oh, you only get one mom, or you only get one dad, or these are your parents, this is the kind of experience that you're supposed to have, you're supposed to family over everything. And I believed that lie for so long. I am 31 years old and I have been chasing a relationship with my mom for 31 years. I grew up seeing my friends and just other people that I knew in my neighborhood and that I went to school with who had these super, super close-knit relationships with their mothers. Mother's Day it is probably the holiday that I hate the most. I hate Mother's Day because it brings me so much pain. And, before I was mature enough to understand the dynamic between me and my mother, it used to make me very resentful of my friends that I would see that their moms were their best friends. And this isn't something that is really talked about. Well, I'm going to say it is something that's talked about in the African American community, but I think that it's not as widespread as it should be. So, what going no contact is going to mean for me is literally no contact. I'm not going to break down and call my mom on her birthday. I'm not going to, on Mother's Day, say Happy Mother's Day, Mom, when I know I really don't mean it. I have these boundaries. Talking to my mother, interacting with my mother, being around my mother, gives me such anxiety. We don't even live in the same state, and I have to seriously, calm myself down before I ever even have a phone conversation or FaceTime with my mom. So I just wanted to encourage somebody today because, this time of year is a lot of focus on family and friends and love, and you can feel pressure to being in relationships, staying in relationships that you don't want to be in, and you don't have to do that. It's okay if it hurts today, and it's okay if you feel relief, and it's okay if you don't feel anything at all. So that's my no contact story.
No safe parent in an abusive family situation. I grew up with a narcissistic, sociopathic mother, and but she would do really, really bad, crazy stuff. Like, I mean, just like stuff that you're like, what is reality? And it just made you like honestly question it. And my stepdad would just be like, yeah, your mom means well. Don't worry. She doesn't mean it. I'm sorry on her behalf. And it was like, and for a lot of years, I defended my stepdad. I was like, you know, he's a great man. I love him. He's so kind. And I was talking to my best friend one day. She was like, AJ, be fucking for real. Like, be so fucking for real. If you married into a family and you watched your spouse treat their kids the way that your mother treated you, and your response was to just watch it, not step in, and then just go, you know, they don't really mean that. Like, don't worry. Like, deep down, they're a good person. Would you ever do that? And I was like, oh, fuck no. Like, no, absolutely not. And she was like, and then she came up with a really funny nickname that rhymed with his name that had to do with a phallic symbol that was very flaccid. So now when we talk about him, that's what we call him, because no good human being would stand by and watch another human being mercilessly abuse their child and just sit there on their hands and go, well, she doesn't really mean it. And when I talk about abuse, I'm talking about like emotional, psychological abuse. Like, my mom would make me doubt reality. My mom would love bomb me and then do really fucked up shit and like get energy off of that. And then it was this cycle. And then she would go, I said I was sorry. And as I became an adult, she would be like, why can't you just forgive me? Because when I was a child and the dynamic was you have to forgive me in order to survive in this family, I didn't have a choice. I had to just forgive her and like move forward with my life if I wanted to survive, if I wanted to have a peaceful life. But once I became adult and that dynamic changed to, I'm like, well, I don't forgive you because you just keep hurting me. And then you keep just apologizing and expecting me to just get hurt again. And so I pulled back from the relationship and I was like, neither one of my parents are safe. And that was why I made the decision to go no contact. And as difficult and as painful as that is, my life is so much better for it. Like, I wish I could emphasize to you the amount of peace that I now have in my life, the amount of room and the beautiful people that I've called into my life. I don't have anxiety anymore when I have family members call me or when I know that there's an event coming up. I don't engage, and my life is so much better for it.
I need you to call my daughter and tell her that I'm dying. I didn't think you had any kids. She stopped speaking to me years ago. I think I even have grandkids. I'll call, but no promises, okay? Okay. Hello? Hi, is this Brooke? Yes. My name's Hadley. I work for hospice. Michelle Smith is my patient. She wants to see you before she dies. I can't. I'm sorry. I understand. Do you want me to give you a call and notify you when she does die? You'd do that? Only if you want me to. Yeah, I'd like to know. No problem. You must think I'm the worst person in the world, but she abused me for years. Not at all. I understand it more than you know, but hey, it's also normal if you grieve this loss, okay? Thanks. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. You don't owe people who abused you peace.
Telling people who are no contact with their parents that they need to either make things right.
I think what a lot of people miss is that a lot of us didn't actually want to go no contact with our parents. We were forced to, because when a parent puts a child in a position where the child has to choose themselves and their mental health over the emotional, physical, spiritual damage that's being done to the child by the parent, it's one of the most difficult decisions that an individual can make. And I think it's really important to note that a lot of us understand the trauma that our parents went through prior to having us. We understand that they didn't have the resources that we have now. We understand that they didn't grow up the way that we have grown up with them. But all we have ever asked of them is to stop treating us as if what they've done to us has had no impact on us, especially when we've taken the time to understand how their lives and their parents have impacted them. I told my mother directly that I would rather be homeless on the street with nothing and have a healthy relationship with her than have her speak to me and treat me the way that she has. And it still didn't click for her. I went through some of the worst losses in my life, and she mocked the entire situation. So for me, when a parent kicks a child when they're at the low points that I have faced, you forced me to go no contact with you, because at that point, contact with you is causing me physical harm. A lot of people don't understand that a lot of us have very internal reactions to the hurt and pain that our parents have caused us that manifests itself in a physical nature. For me, I start shaking, I get night sweats, I start having panic attacks. It affects me to the point where I can't even mentally focus. And this has shown up in a plethora of my relationships, romantic relationships with partners who mirrored behavior of my parents, specifically my mother and my father. Well, yeah, those are my parents. I mean, I don't claim them. Anyway, what I'm saying is people have to push a lot of us to the point of no contact, because a lot of us want those very relationships that you guys are telling us that we need. That's your mom, that's your dad, that's your husband, that's your sister, that's your auntie, that's your uncle. Okay, and who am I? Who am I? Do I not matter in this equation? Because if I'm not going to matter to you, them, I have to matter to myself. Like, I can't just continue to put everyone ahead of me. And that's why a lot of us have chosen to go no contact. And there are plenty of us that are not going to come back for the inheritance because we never needed your money. We wanted your love, respect, kindness, protection, care. That's what we wanted. And I'm not saying that money doesn't matter, because it does, but what mattered more was love and respect for my parents, not what they gave me. And I've been an empath and a people pleaser. So, if I had to cut somebody off, I had to be pushed there, because doormats put up with everything.
I just had a little bit of a emotional moment, but I'm fine. I'm fine now. I was just thinking, and I wanted to come on here and obviously dump my thoughts and let you guys know, but I just wanted to say, I think the hardest part, or one of the hardest parts, because there's a lot, of having no contact with a parent is every year when your birthday comes around, when the holidays come around, wondering if you're going to hear from that parent. Am I going to get a text message from them? Am I going to get a phone call from them? And I have had no contact with my dad for years, but I think it's just something that I wonder every year. Am I going to hear from this person? Do I really want to hear from them? What would I say back to them? And I think it's just always in the back of your head, wondering if you're going to hear from them. And I think it's always a lot harder around the holiday season when you don't have contact with that parent.